originally starting this project, we knew there were issues with elderly healthcare and them not getting what they needed out of it. But to our surprise, it had nothing to do with the actual facilities or staff members. The issues we found had more to do with the government and their new policies that directly affect elderly health. They are not getting the full care they need, such as things like physical therapy or being treated for the amount of time they need. The government makes a profile of how they think elderly health care should be and expects everyone to fit into that category no matter what.
In 1965, Lyndon B. Johnson signed into law the Social Security Amendments of 1965, the bill that became Medicare, a type of insurance that is provided by the government for more vulnerable populations. This coverage was introduced to the elderly, as before the bill's passing, over half the population over 65 did not have any type of health insurance. The original bill only covered hospital visits and some other medical care, separated into Part A for hospital charges and Part B for medical expenses. The first major change to the system happened in 1972, with the Social Security Amendments of 1972, which changed Medicare so that it could cover people under 65 with long-term disabilities, along with beginning to cover some chiropractic care and speech and physical therapy. Covering things like hospice care and terminally ill services came with the Tax Equity and Fiscal Responsibility Act of 1982. This act would also increase the Part B premium to cover 25% of the program cost. Another big change to the system was the Social Security Amendments of 1983, which introduced a prospective payment system to replace the charge-based one that was in place. The prospective payment system uses diagnostic-related groups, or DRGs, to predetermine payments.
Level. So, like, policy for you, all right, is that residents have rights. They have opinions. They have it matters. So, although we do encourage patients to come to the generator, they don't have to. We'd like them to be active, not be laid in bed all the time. You can encourage all you want, but if they say no, you really say no. So we try to make the dining room as nice and enticing as possible to get people to come down. Still, residents' rights is probably number one. So, like, they're free to come in. Most people like to shut down their dining rooms during the day. That's just a choice. Not as come and go. Short term, rehab. But yeah, in a way, it's kind of because they could eat one here one day, they don't have to work. And I have something here. It has the Nevada residents' rights. It's like 70 different rules to it. We'll take that
So
one.
you have to
Exactly.
follow those.
Mm-hmm.
Gotcha. And you said you have a copy of those?
I do. I can take one.
Diagnosis-related groups, or the DRG, is a system of payment for the operating costs associated with Medicare, a hospital inpatient stays. The system was created by the Social Security Act that is based off set rates referred to as the inpatient perspective. When we visited our site, Marcus explained this a little more. When an 80-year-old white woman comes into the hospital with pneumonia, the doctors will look at a previous profile of someone with the same age, background, gender, and illness to see how long they stayed in the hospital and what kind of care they received while being there. Based off that previous profile, it will decide the care that the new patient will receive and how long her stay will be. Marcus was saying that this method can be helpful since doctors would already have a guideline to follow, but the problem is that not everyone fits into that profile and could need longer care or more intense care depending on their body.
Upon visiting an acute care inpatient facility, we found that acute rehabilitation for the elderly was affected by alternative reimbursement methods, for example, the Affordable Care Act. Acute rehabilitation provides an inpatient program of intense therapy in a hospital setting. The patient must actively participate in therapy daily for a few hours. For example, therapy would include physical, occupational, speech, and active therapy. It is vital that each patient actively participates, and depending on the severity of each case, daily hours are assigned accordingly. We must also take into consideration individual insurance policies.
Them at a lower level, and then we're seeing them until they're safe to go home. So this is my favorite. We really form a relationship with the patients. It's you get to see them at their worst and then see them.
Medicare, a health insurance program for people ages 65 and older, under age 65 with certain disabilities, and people of all ages with end-stage renal disease. Medicare offers Part A, B, and prescription drug coverage, paid by insurance premiums. Insurance premiums are the amount of money that an individual or business must pay for an insurance policy. Due to the aging population, Medicare is a vital insurer and will continue to be vital as there is a rapid increase in the 65 and over population. Associated with aging are chronic diseases such as diabetes and cardiovascular diseases. This aging population utilizes the health system greater than any other population. Hence, policies and budget cuts made toward Medicare insurance program will affect the elderly. Change made can affect access to medical services, drug costs will increase, and decrease payments for providers, hence less services for the elderly, such as the rehabilitation services mentioned earlier, ultimately affecting the overall quality of life.